As communities try to push back on this indoctrination, one thing everyone needs to understand is their constitutional rights. Here to explain those boundaries for students, parents, and teachers especially is the former Trump education official, Adam Kissel. Adam served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Higher Education Programs at the DOE, and before that, he was an expert on these fundamental freedoms at the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. Adam, thanks so much for joining us for Pray Vote Stand.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You know, we saw this clip earlier of the head of one of the largest teacher unions in the nation. There's this idea that they control the classrooms, and they've left this impression upon parents that basically they have to surrender their kids and they can say little about it.
Well, it's not true. Students have First Amendment rights of freedom of religion as well as freedom of speech. They have a right to say, you can't force me to believe this or that. You can make me learn that somebody believes X or Y of a different religion or of a different ideology, but you can't make me either say that it's true or take actions as though I believed it were true. I could do role playing as though I'm Benjamin Franklin and pretend I'm Benjamin Franklin, but I can't be told to go out into the community and act as though certain things that I don't believe are actually true.
So what resources are available to students and parents when they find themselves in these situations? Are there actions that parents can take?
There's a lot that parents can do. One thing is to know your rights. So in the Trump administration, later in the administration after I wasn't there, we put out something called Guidance on Constitutionally Protected Prayer and Religious Expression in Public Elementary and Secondary Schools. And it outlines in a really clear way what your rights are from a religious perspective. So thinking about it, equal treatment, equal protection, anything that a student is allowed to say or do at a certain time, place, or manner from a secular point of view, you're completely allowed to do that from a religious point of view. So that means distribute literature, pray during a moment of silence, have a club, evangelize at a time when other students are allowed to talk to other students. You're allowed to do that too. And if other students are allowed to be excused from material for whatever reason, you as a religious parent are allowed to get your students out of material that you want to have them excused from. So knowing your rights is important, but knowing what's taught in the classroom is also important. So knowing how to file a Freedom of Information Act request, it's called something different in every different state, but getting exactly what your students are being exposed to is something you're allowed to get at a public school because of these Freedom of Information Acts at the state level. And you need to be able to do that well so you get the material that you're looking for. And there's a bunch of places you can go online to figure that out. I work with the Heritage Foundation a little bit, and we put out a survey just last week showing that out of 1,000 parents, a lot of them still don't know what critical race theory is, and of those who do know, don't have a strong opinion about it. So there's a lot of education that you can do as a parent yourself to get up to speed and to know what you're reading and to see what different terms mean on the Heritage website or some other places you can go. And so then once you've done that FOIA request, you can see what those words and terms mean and go after what you don't like. So that's the second thing. And then, as you said at the beginning, parent groups are springing up everywhere. And so you could go to Moms for Liberty, Parents Defending Education, No Left Turn in Education, Education First Alliance, and Protect Our Kids.
And by the way, folks, we've got that document that Adam made reference to on the constitutional rights at PrayVoteStand.org. It's one of the resources we have there at the bottom of the page, so that's there for you. Adam, your experience, is it often that if equipped with this information in the official format as it is, that sometimes that's enough when you present that to the school, to the teachers, that they realize they've crossed the line and they're dealing with a parent who knows what's going on?
Well, every school and district is unique, and sometimes that'll work well. Sometimes that won't work at all, as we saw in a lot of the news stories that you presented. So having enough parents to write in and call in and show up at the school board meetings, and in some cases run for school board and win, are all strategies. but you don't know if you're going to win or not in any particular place. If something is so egregious that your students' rights are violated, either their civil rights by being told that their race is inherently bad and that they should feel ashamed of it, that would be a civil rights violation, and you can go and file a civil rights complaint, because sometimes you're not going to win at the school level and you've got to go outside the school. You can even go to the US Department of Education on religious liberty and civil rights issues and file complaints there. And the wheels of justice turn slowly at the federal level, but they eventually do turn. And you have a bunch of different places you can go.
Right, there's no question there are some activists in the pipeline there within the schools themselves that are intentionally involved in an indoctrination of our children, and doing so with great glee. Adam, I want to ask you this question because you were involved in education before you joined the Trump administration. After entering into the Department of Education, was it worse than you thought in terms of what had been happening in our nation in the schools?
It's 10 times worse. Elections have consequences, as a former president said, and a lot of those people are not going to, in fact, do what the law says they have to do at the federal level. So we saw inside the administration a lot of trouble. Outside, education is not a legitimate role of the federal government. It existed anyway, right? But the issue was we didn't want to impose a federal mandate as much as we could on states and local schools. The secretary's idea was, let's get out of the way so that states and teachers and students could all do what they thought they should do in their own communities. So a lot of people still think that you should be a top-down education department, but we tried to stay out of it so that local control could really win. The problem, again, local control means you're going to have some good school districts and some really bad ones. And that's what you buy when you have a decentralized America.
Well, I'm with you on that. I think local government is better government because it has the ability for the citizens to touch it and direct it better than the national federal government. One final question for you, Adam. Based upon what you're now seeing with these parent groups, these citizen groups rising up across the country, taking on critical race theory, taking on this whole LGBTQ ideology that's being pushed into classrooms, are you encouraged that we could see a major shift in public education?
I'm very encouraged. I think we're at a moment now where a wave of awareness is coming. We know that a lot of people still don't know what's going on, but a lot more people do. We're seeing parents win school board seats. We're seeing parents become activists. We're seeing all of these parent groups come up. So if you're one of the parents who's wondering if there's a place for you in a parents' movement, the answer is yes, it's getting bigger and bigger.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Great to talk with you, and appreciate your service in this critical arena of public education.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And folks, I want to encourage you, check out the resources we have available for you. In particular, parents, the constitutional rights that you and your children have, and not to mention teachers. We probably have some teachers watching that are just as concerned about what's happening in the classroom. We've had them on the program before. You have rights as well. Go to PrayVoteStand.org, and it's down at the bottom of the page.